1022 Ruger is the most common .22 long rifle in the country. As far as using it defensively, it has some merit, but not a lot. 1022, .22 long rifle, anything, is at a disadvantage. So if you're considering the fact that you might have to use this defensively, maybe it's your only option, and you don't have the money for another firearm right now, which I understand, I've been there, you have to maximize all the potential. You have to pull out all the stops to make it the best you can. How do we do that? We do that by using the best ammo, by having the most amount of shots, by training with it, getting some practice, and by getting the best sighting system on the gun. They come stock with the little low profile standard V-notch sights and a little pin in the front. It's an accurate little sight, but it's not a good sight for defensive type use. It's hard. It's so small and short that it's hard to find quickly. I went with Garand style sighting system. This is Tech Sights. It's a cheap sight, easy to install, pretty accurate. I do shoot better with that. It was a learning curve to learn how to use peeps. That was my first peep sight, aperture sight. That is quicker for target acquisition. It's a lot faster, but it's not what I'd recommend. What I'd recommend is some type of a red dot. And this is my cheap one. This was the original True Glow red dot. I just camouflaged it with some spray paint. I would recommend strongly a red dot or a laser. Lasers are cheap. You can install a laser that hooks on the barrel or that hooks on the receiver up here, and just make sure it's on, dead on at the farthest shot you would have in your home. That's a great way to do it. You can have grip activated, a little switch, or a red dot. Red dots are the fastest way to shoot and get on target and stay on target. Next up is ammo selection. Okay, this is just some of the ammo that I have right now. Usually I have a lot more, but things are goofy with ammo right now. Can't get a whole lot. So I'm running down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 different types of .22 long rifle ammo here. None of these I would recommend. Your standard .22 long rifle ammo is a 40 grain bullet going about 1,250 feet per second, and it'll have around 125 or so foot-pounds of energy. That's really, really, really low for having any type of good defensive merit, any type of man-stopping merit to it. What we want for a so-called man-stopper is at least 200 foot-pounds of energy, and that's the bottom level, and 32 caliber after expansion. Because at that point you're causing enough vascular damage to have a good shot at bleeding out with 1 or 2 shots. 22 long rifle doesn't, in any of these forms, standard velocity, but I call it standard velocity. That's considered by the industry high velocity, is when you hit the 1,200 feet per second mark. No good. They won't expand one bit even if they're hollow points. They're going to penetrate deep because they're so skinny, but they're not going to expand. In fact, the .22 long rifle will penetrate much more than my 5.56 and 223 ARs will, because the bullet's going slow enough that it won't fall apart. It stays together and it just keeps going. So the only ammo that I have that I'd recommend, the only ammo I'd recommend period, and I have it, for the .22 long rifle defensive use is the Agia Interceptor. Agia Interceptor, 40 grain ammunition. It's a hollow point. It's one of the only 2 that really tends to expand. This stuff is rated at 1,470 feet per second, and out of the Ruger 1022, it shoots about 1,470 feet per second. I'm kind of wondering if Agia doesn't use a 1022 for their velocity testing, seeing as most all of their ammo's stated velocity is exactly what I get out of my 1022. And I've seen that with a few other guys' 1022s. They're all pretty close to that. The Agia Interceptor hollow points are the most powerful .22 long rifle ammo. They cause bigger wounding than the CCI Stingers and the CCI Velocitors. They cause more damage in a wound channel, a wider wound channel with more vascular damage. They penetrate a little deeper than the Stingers, and they actually have some expansion. They have more bone penetrating power, which is something you need when you're considering things like shoulders, spine, skull. That's the only bullet you should use. Saying it again, product placement. I'm not paid for it, but you guys could pay me. the Agia Interceptor hollow point bullets. The best, if you can find them, grab them and keep them. If you have to use the 22 long rifle, use the 10-22 in a defensive situation, use the Agia Interceptors. The next best are the CCI Velocitors, and the next under that is the CCI Stingers. So those three are the only three that I would ever consider, and the Agia Interceptors are the tops of that group. Now, let's get into stopping power and effectiveness of the 22 long rifle. I've been going through as many studies as I can find, and they're not that easy to find, but there's a couple that go into the different results from your various calibers of gunshot victims, as far as how many bullets did it take to incapacitate someone, what was the percentage of people that were actually stopped with one shot, which that's an important part that I'm going to look at, because that kind of tells us how effective the bullets are, not necessarily at putting somebody on the ground and keeping them there, but at least at stopping a situation from advancing. Now, one thing that I found interesting with the 22 long rifle, you got about, between all of the different studies, between 30 and 40% of the time somebody gets shot with the 22 long rifle, one shot was enough to stop the situation. Now, part of that, I'm fairly certain, is because most of the 22s that people still have out there, there's so many of the 22 revolvers in a single action out there that are slow to shoot. As well as people who aren't trained very well in defensive firearms, they're not going to get off many shots, maybe just one, especially if you're panicking. You shoot somebody just once, most of the times, that's enough to make them run away and flee the scene. They're now gone. You've now rectified the situation. However, we also need to look at its incapacitation numbers. How many times the 22 long rifle doesn't incapacitate someone. And it has about twice the instances of other calibers where it wasn't enough to put someone down. I mean, 22 long rifle can cause some lasting damage, bleeding damage and such. You might be able to bleed out on the way to the hospital type of thing. It doesn't cause a whole lot of vascular damage though. So you're not going to shoot somebody a couple times, generally, and have them fall down from the shock of it all, then bleed out within a few seconds, like you can with the 9mm or the 40-45. That's the problem with the 22. One bullet isn't much. However, my 10-22 comes standard, just like anyone else's does, with 10-bullet magazine. That also doesn't stick out, doesn't get in the way of anything. I can shoot 10 bullets in about 2.5 seconds out of this, and hit the target. Shooting that fast, at the distance of my living room, about 20 feet away, I can get every target, every bullet, shooting as fast as I can, in about an 8-inch circle. That's not great accuracy, but that's good enough in here for home defensive use. That's really where its merit is the fact that I can keep shooting. You put a 25-round magazine on this thing, like most people like to, stick to the Ruger name brand magazines. Don't go off-brand for something like that if it's for potential defensive use. If at all you can, keep Ruger name brand magazines. With the Agia Interceptor hollow point ammo, one of these bullets is comparable to about a number 2 buckshot, almost a number 1 buckshot from a 12 gauge as far as overall penetration and power. That's impressive. If you get 4 or 5 shots in somebody, it's about like getting hit with a load of buckshot. Now, a little bit of practice, I can put 4 shots to a target in the time it would take to run across my living room. So there's some serious merit to that. One shot won't do it. Just like with any other type of defensive shooting. Keep shooting until the threat has stopped. With the 22 long rifle, it takes more than 1 shot. With any gun, it usually takes more than 1 shot. The benefit is rifles versus pistols. Easier to stay on target with a rifle than it is to stay on target with a pistol while shooting. This moves around more, it's hard to control. This is anchored to my body, it's easy to control. I can shoot faster with my 10-22 because there's almost no recoil. There's about a half pound, third of a pound of recoil, which is nothing. I can stay on target and shoot as fast as I can and keep every bullet in a torso. As far as where you should shoot, what area you should target, between the armpits and neck to head are the areas that would incapacitate someone. Basically, all you should be going for is between the armpits here. Across the chest, across the top of the pecs, between the armpits. That's your largest target, and that's an effective target. Doesn't matter what you're shooting. In a fast-paced defensive situation, go for the bigger target, between the armpits. Now, that's pretty much all there is that I have to say about the 10-22 for a defensive use. It has some merit, but not much. It's got a lot going against it. If you're going to use the 10-22 or any 22 defensively, maximize your potential, get the absolute best ammo you can. Practice with some ammo. You can practice with the cheap ammo. That's fine. It doesn't make a difference at home defense distances, close quarters. Get the most powerful ammo you can get. If at all possible, get some kind of a sighting system, laser or red dot, because you can shoot better. Plain and simple. Every shot's easier with the laser or red dot, especially with the red dots, and they're so well made these days. Get the full-size 25-round magazine if you can find one, and now you have some potential. As long as you practice. Nothing else matters if you don't practice. But, I mean, 22 long rifle, you've got, with this stuff, you're shooting 380 level power. Now, most 380s, they're about 200 foot-pounds of energy. With this ammo going 1,470 feet per second with a 40-grain bullet, you're hitting about 206 foot-pounds of energy. So you're up there with 380 level of energy. You just don't have as wide of a bullet, even after expansion, so it's not going to cause as much vascular damage. So this, even with the best ammunition, it comes out to being about equal to a 32 ACP. It's a smaller bullet, but it's so much more powerful. It's significantly more powerful than the 32 ACP. It's just a smaller bullet, but you can honestly compare a really hot 22 long rifle to a 32 ACP and in the overall amount of damage that it can do to a target. So there is some merit to it, but maximize your potential. Okay, that's what I've got for you today here at Michigan Sharpshooters. I hope you learned something here, and I hope you go off and have a good day. Bye now.